on.
Is Susan come? Is she in the other room?
I don't know if she's in the other room.
I thought I started going to the big room.
Oh, Susan might be here, so she's going to wander over momentarily. Thank you.
Where's Paula?
Going to do the roll call.
Oh, he's doing the oil spill.
I've got Marty, John Fusick, Linda Andros,
Did you see it?
and Chris
Oh, walk
Schubert.
upstairs.
And then sitting in,
Did you go to the big room?
First Selectman Moynihan, and Tiger Man from DPW. And on board, we have Kathleen Holland and Paul Payne attending. Thank you so much. I call the meeting to order. And I'd like to start with First Selectman to confirm our commissioners and officers.
Well, I'll conduct the election. What do you mean confirm the commissioners?
Should conduct the election. But
I mean, you're confirmed or whatever.
so we're
Thank you. Thank
the St.
you.
Gregory, I'm in the St. Gregory's environment. So long as you don't baptize.
There may have been some reappointments. Anyway, so I would, you wish to continue on as chairman, I'll take nominations for chairman. Anyone can make a nomination for chairman.
I nominate Chris Schubert for chairman.
All right, is there a second? Marty? Second? You second? Chris? Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Chris for chair another year?
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great vote of confidence from all of you.
And then how about secretary? Is there a nomination for secretary?
I would nominate Susan Schweitzer as secretary.
Okay, is there a second? Marty seconds, okay. Any further nominations? All in favor of Susan for secretary?
Unanimous? Thank you, Marty. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
I'll stay around for a while.
Please.
Oh, by the way, thank you for your service. Part of the job. Thank you, but no, I think you're doing a terrific job, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Then let's hand it over to Kathleen Holland. And I want to say thank you for all the work that you've been doing, you and Paul in particular, being on site and looking after this. I realize this isn't the Exxon Valdez or Deepwater Horizon, but it's pretty shocking to have an oil spill in our town that can travel over 1,500 feet and line the pond at Bristow with an oily residue. So Kathleen, I'd love for you to explain what happened to our commissioners, and I think we'll have some questions for you as well.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. For those of you who do not know my role here with the town of New Canaan, I'm the director of inland wetlands and watercourses and also the floodplain manager for the town. I became involved with this particular incident due to an alert that was sent by yours truly, Chris Schipper. Thank you, Chris, for alerting us to the issue that you discovered in Bristow on February 4th. So working with our team, and you'll hear from Paul Payne, our fire marshal, in a minute, you know, how this sort of unfolded and where things are as of today. It's an extremely unfortunate incident, accident that has occurred. And in my 32 years with the town, I've never had this level of pollution or spill of oil, unfortunately affecting, you know, Bristow in particular, in addition to the piped watercourse that runs from Douglas Road to piped most of the way. Like as Chris mentioned, it's 1,500 feet from the entire run into the Bristow Bird Sanctuary, underground, piped, and then the spill was noticed when Chris was in the park on that afternoon. Thank goodness he noticed it. The town organized, and Paul can tell you, you know, the fire marshal's role, and the incident is largely regulated, honestly, by the Department of Environmental Protection and Energy. So they are the point folks on these types of spill incidents, and they have a special team that gets dispatched out of the Stratford area to respond to the spill as soon as they are alerted to it. Our role here with the town, my department, the fire department, the engineering, DPW, the highway department, we just facilitated getting them information, trying to troubleshoot, trying to help them find the source, because we're the boots on the ground. We know where all the pipes are and where they go to, and catch basins. We know who the homeowners are at particular locations, and hopefully being able to get in contact with somebody where we suspected the problem may be occurring from. Paul, would you like to start with the dispatch portion of the record that you started with?
Sure. Thank you all for asking me to be here. I'm happy to be here, and any help questions I can answer, I'm happy to do. So this happened on Friday, February 4th. I was notified by Inland Wetlands Director Kathleen Holland of an oil release at Bristow Sanctuary at approximately 12 o'clock noon. I dispatched the fire department at 12:14. I then notified DEP Emergency Response and Spill Division. Upon arrival at the site, I noted that FD had placed absorbent booms in 2 locations in the inlet south of Bristow Pond, and an additional boom on the south side of Old Stamford Road at the head wall. DEP Emergency Response Coordinators Leo Garricon and Peter Roche arrived on scene at 1:30 in the afternoon, and the scene was turned over to them. The DEP Emergency Incident Report case number is 2022-00509. Monitoring of the site and upstream went on until the source was discovered on Wednesday, February 9th. Remediation began immediately. Absorbent booms were placed, one in the north head wall on Douglas Road, 2 basins north and south on Orchard, 1 on Park Place, another one at the head wall of Old Stamford Road, and 3 in the creek south of in Bristow Sanctuary. To date, approximately 100 tons or 8 20-yard containers of contaminated material have been removed from the residence. Completion, unfortunately, is unknown as of this time. They are still cleaning. All precautions are in place for rain, which we're expected to get tonight. Fortunately or unfortunately, the product was all delivered to the sanctuary via pipe. Had that been in a creek, it could have been much worse. And unfortunately, the cleaning for the pipes we're going to count on rain for that. Not we, but DEP. And all the precautions are in place for the rain, so they'll be able to capture all the product coming through the pipes getting into Bristow. And remediation will continue. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have, but that's where we are to date.
Kathleen, just to repeat, this is the first time in your experience that you've seen a oil spill or a leakage of this magnitude?
Yes,
This-
one that has actually made its way into a water course. There have been, obviously, through the time period, mostly the oil leaks are contained to individual properties and remediated immediately at the property. This one happened to, it's a little complicated, but the source was the sheen, which was first noticed in the catch basin on the north side of Douglas Road. The actual source is still another 325 feet away, if you can imagine that. But there is the product did, unbeknownst to the homeowner, it was an external above ground tank with a leak, and it had reached the footing drain of the foundation, and also found its way along a pipe that led towards a storm sewer main that traveled to the west, and then ultimately the small drip of the sheen was noticed at that location. I have never seen this amount actually in a watercourse in my time here. One thing that did occur is between February 4th and February 9th, when the source was located by one of the DEP inspectors who kept after it, and as we all did, trying to locate the source, there had been a delivery of more fuel to the homeowner's home on a Sunday, and Fire Marshal Payne had been out and about and monitoring and taking photos, and he found, again, another sort of very evident of some more product. Home heating oil is dyed pink for actually tax reasons, but it shows up quite readily. So we definitely knew what it was, and we knew it was something fresh and that had occurred again recently. So that sort of started putting all the puzzle together as to where is this coming from. Multiple properties were interviewed. Most people cooperated with the interviewing and trying to help us find where the source was. The neighbors in the neighborhood were very, very cooperative, and obviously everyone was quite devastated the fact that it was getting into Bristow, and knowing of all the good work that the town and the commission has been doing in that location to restore it. So yeah, no, this was my first time seeing quite this amount of pollution. It was very upsetting, very upsetting. I was relieved, as was Paul, when we were notified that they found the source, and then very quickly activated the remediation, abated the nuisance of the tank leaking. That was corrected within an hour, I would say. So, stopping the source and starting the digging and the excavating, as Paul mentioned, 8 containers of contaminated soil have since been removed from the location. Couple other things that we are DEP is looking at is they do a lot of soil sampling and testing and monitoring, and this will be ongoing even after they feel as though they have a clean site. There is a down gradient neighbor, which is being monitored as well with their cooperation. They'll be able to take some soil samples and probes to make sure that there is clean soil on that person's property. There'll be ongoing water sampling at the location where the spill actually occurred. So unfortunately, we don't know what the end date of this will be, but I think it's best at this point in time, as DEP as well, they stay on site, they make sure that it's done. As I mentioned, DEP does have a state approved contractor who is specializing in this area. So I feel very comfortable with the cleanup and the response that has had to occur. It's just unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Kathleen. Commissioners, questions, concerns?
Even if you clean up the ground near where the spill was, further on down, even into the sanctuary, surrounding ground has absorbed some oil, I'm sure. What can we do about that, and what will the future be?
I can answer that in part. We didn't mention this as part of the presentation, but DEP initially, before we even knew where the spill was occurring, it was obvious that it had gotten into the Bristow area. The temperatures being cold as they were, the oil actually emulsified, so it was clumped and gathered in certain locations. So they had ACV actually come in and they vacuum suctioned off any of the emulsified oils that they were able to visually see from that area. The booms that have been put in place, those white, I don't know if you all may have gotten down there and seen some of the absorbent booms that have been put in strategic locations up and down the water course. They will help to absorb. They've been changed out several times as soon as they pick up the product. So I don't know that there'll be any further excavation or soil excavation within Bristow. Because they have done the vacuum suctioning of product that had landed into the sanctuary.
Has anybody come up with an estimate of how much oil has spilled and how long this has been going on?
You think the homeowner
Yeah,
would have to
Paul and I
do it.
did ask that question. There's an approximate, tracking back deliveries at that location and usage or spillage in this case. The best estimate that they can come up with, this is DEP, with estimating approximately in the neighborhood of 250 gallons of oil, unfortunately. Is that what you recall, Paul, that Pete said?
Yeah.
today?
Yes, certainly between 200 and 300 gallons, so 250 is safe.
And does anybody know how long it may have been dripping? This is an external tank that rusted or it was damaged, I take it?
It looks like a seam, one of the welded seams had begun to leak. It was a tank, the tank was dated 1999. DEP recommends 20-year life of an oil tank, so it was about 23 years old. And it had leaked in a welded seam.
Yeah, okay.
So by 5:36 PM that day on the February 4th, I got the email from Deep. I get 2 or 3 emails
Yeah.
a week from Deep about spills in the can.
Mhm.
Usually it's a gallon here or 5 gallons there where a delivery truck has, so any spill in the can, I and health department get an email.
Wow.
So just usually it goes directly down to the property. In this case, obviously it was found its course to the waterway.
Linda, any questions?
Is there any kind of regulation on inspecting tanks in the state or locally? No.
In a single family residence, unfortunately, no. Just the recommendation that it's checked at least every 2 years by your boiler contractor or your oil delivery personnel, but it would be something you'd have to request.
Why wouldn't the oil delivery company notice a leak like that? I mean, obviously, these guys are around heating oil and smell it all the time, but why wouldn't they be more alert?
Well, might it be
Right, sir,
a
and sir,
snow covered day when
my
they come-
thought on that, sir, so this was an outside tank right adjacent to the house. It was, if you can picture, a lean-to shed built around it to protect it from the weather. There are kind of 2 barn doors that open at the top to fill the tank. And I wondered that myself. And I'm thinking, this delivery guy, his gloves probably stink, his clothes probably stink. He's smelling oil all day long. Certainly,
Nothing strange there, yeah.
yeah, that's the only thing I could think, because I wondered the same.
Right. When we got on scene and saw the tank, the removable protection had been pulled away from the building, because that was one of the first questions I think we asked. How come nobody noticed this? Because it was obviously very obvious to us once we got there, but I think it was housed to a degree that they didn't notice it. It was completely unknown by the homeowner. The homeowner is quite devastated and readily making the provisions to allow the cleanup to occur, obviously, and it's quite a task.
I have a question. Paul, you mentioned that for the pipe, the way it will eventually get cleaned is just through rainfall. There's no method to scrub out a pipe, right? It'll just continually erode away whatever oil is on the sides and emulsify it and bring it out.
That is correct, and it'll be contained by the booms that have been placed, and they will be monitored and changed out until such time as no more product or sheen is coming out, is my understanding from DEP.
So from our narrow perspective, from a bird sanctuary perspective, the more booms we have in place between Old Stamford Road in that creek bed, the better off it is in order to prevent oil coming underneath Old Stamford Road or residual and across. But obviously, it sounds like we're going to have to live with booms in Bristow for a while.
I would say yes, and the booms are placed, as Kathleen stated, in strategic locations. Where they can put them is really in the catch basins, because everything else is piped underground.
Right.
And then
Right.
where it resurfaces on the north side of Old Stamford Road, there are 3 sets of booms before Bristow Pond. And they will be monitored and changed out regularly.
Okay, and I would like that there obviously is a lesson learned here, and that we should all look more carefully. But lessons are brought home with facts, and if we can write up a lesson learned that says approximately 300 gallons of heating oil leaked out of this tank, it triggered the removal of almost 100 tons of material to get there at a cost of $50,000. I think people will sit up a little more carefully and say, gee, I better go take a look at my tank. So rather than I'm not trying to penalize anyone for what has happened, but I would hope that in the dialogue with the homeowners, even if it's disguised, that we can get a lesson learned out of this that we can share more broadly in our town. It doesn't have to say, you know, it would be great if they were willing to say, don't let this happen to you. It's a little bit like a cancer victim with the sound system on. But it's more effective if we bring data to bear on the storyline so that people can say, gee, and realize that your insurance will cover you with this far, or you better have a good insurance policy, or you'll be out of pocket. But also, the message for me is we're downstream of just about every outlet in Center New Canaan, Bristow Park. It's the sponge that receives everything. And so the other message is we all have to be more careful of whatever else we're applying on our lawns, in our.
My oil tanks are in the basement. And do we still have a lot of tanks that are sunk into the ground near the houses? We do?
Underground tanks, sir, are still in place. And the building code also still allows them to be installed. Now, the tanks have come a long way, but you can still bury a tank if you choose.
And the 20-year-old tank can leak. It doesn't seem like they've come a long way. They've been around for 100 years. So
They do fiberglass now instead of,
they can rust out.
they do fiberglass now instead of.
So they
steel
do
tank.
fiberglass now.
Well, they also have the Roth tanks now, which are double wall tanks. I'd say in the last 10 or 15 years, they've really improved.
I have one question, Kathleen, sorry, because Tiger's here and he's going to leave in a moment. Tiger, what exactly is a storm sewer drain? Is it sewage? Is it stormwater?
Totally stormwater.
Totally storm water.
We don't have combined sewers.
Okay.
Totally storm. Our sanitary is completely separate.
Right, and so this thing found its way through a sump pump line,
No, footing drain,
a footing drain,
outside footing drain.
that outside footing drain that tied into the storm sewer that then flowed out. Okay, so it had to find its way down and then along that grain mine, not in it, but outside of it.
Could have gone in or outside. A lot of times we'll travel on the outside of it.
Yeah.
We'll get water to travel on the outside of the pipe. And then it went, then from there, it found its way into our drainage system, yes. It can go into a stream and then into our drainage system, and then drainage system leads to Bristol.
Got it. And then just one last concern while DPW is here, there are a lot of tire marks throughout Bristow, through the entranceway and around the
We're gonna
new,
come in and fix it.
that's gonna get remediated.
I got tire trucks in a lot of parks right now. I
Yeah.
saw a lot over waving today, so yeah, we'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you so much. In terms of the new fernery that was planted and what have you.
And actually, if I may, before Tiger goes, I'd just like to express my thanks to Tiger and DPW. He arranged for a camera to camera some of the lines so that we could try to find this, and Tiger and his crew were phenomenal during this.
And also thanks to Chris for visiting Bristol every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty,
Feeding
you're not thinking-
birders, watching for pollution. It's getting to be this commissioner job is getting eliminated. Guys, any closing remarks? We're gonna lose the first selectman and our head of DPW. Good luck, guys, in your finance discussion. Please try to lower my mill rate if you can.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Chris, I have
Go
Chris,
ahead.
I just have one comment to the commissioner who mentioned his inside oil tanks. Those
Yeah.
also can sometimes become problematic because oftentimes folks have a sump pump internally in their basement. If those internal tanks spring a leak, completely bust open, the petroleum will go into the sump pump and then you're right outside the building. So inspection of internal oil tanks is also very important to keep on top of, because that is the first thing a DEP suspected, that it was an internal tank. They did not expect it was an external tank.
So,
So the oil companies do annual service to the boilers, et cetera, but I don't know that they actually look at the tanks. Is that something the homeowners should be encouraged to ask their companies to do?
I would suggest that they request an oil tank inspection at least every 2 years.
That ought to be a regulation.
Yeah, it should be a regulation, but obviously it's not. So when we put out that little.
Right. So to just come back to that one point, we want to take this unfortunate experience and make it a precautionary tale. We have a bigger concern in doing that, in that we're doing studies of what flows in and out of Bristow Pond. And we've identified, spikes in nitrates, spikes in phosphate, other variables that come in. And we want to use this story to start telling people to be more thoughtful about what you do, because it flows downstream. What you do upstream affects all of us downstream, and in particular, nature, which has no defense. So, in a place where we're trying to encourage amphibian life and turtles and fish,
Right.
birds, it's pretty tough on Bristow to have an oil sheen around the perimeter. So I'm hopeful that maybe the heavy rain and the booms will help clean this problem up. I suspect it'll last for months at the rate we're going, and that we'll be regularly switching out booms and trying to accumulate. But anything we can do to prevent more oil getting into Bristow is certainly advantageous for us. And I'm even wondering if we should cut off, well, now it's a problem, cut off the water flow into the pond by sealing the dam inlet. But I don't know whether I'd go that far yet. I don't know whether water purging is the way to go. It's hard to say. But I am concerned, as Marty said, about an oil sheen on the residual of the pond, that every time the water level goes up or down, will just wash in another round.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think we should include some soil testing, as we do our water testing in spring and summer and fall, we should regularly test the soil.
And then I guess we can impose upon DEEP to say, because this is a protected wildlife sanctuary, DEEP protected, we would like them to do regular soil samples in and around the Bristow Pond.
you know, we certainly can reach out to them to do that. I did reach out to Sarah Crosby, who does the Harbor Watch water testing currently at Bristow. They don't have the capability to do the type of testing that would be required for this, but they do have a resource. So certainly that's something that could be followed up on and perhaps done. Mostly at this point, we didn't do any water sampling, and the reason being is we ultimately found the source. Had we
Right.
not found the source, we may have sort of tried to get a concentration of where is it coming from at the highest level to the lowest level. But we did not need to do that at this point in time. But maybe, you know, post full remediation, it might be worthwhile to continue to do some sampling, which DEP will be doing immediately at the location.
Well, it's difficult, you know, we identified it on the 4th. It wasn't, we saw the result on the 4th. We were able to identify it by the 9th. Obviously, it was a weekend in between. And today is the, 17th. So the time, it's there, and we'll see how this next big rain pushes things along.
Chris, can I just?
We were out there all weekend looking for it as well. And not a day went by that somebody wasn't out there trying to find the source. It just was so remote. We're grateful to DEP to finally locating it.
I'd like to kind of second what you said about getting the word out to people about what's happened, that we should all think about how we might do that. And I would suggest we think about doing it sooner rather than later. You don't have to have this resolved before.
Right.
And in fact, if we want maximum exposure of it, there might be further updates to what has happened, which could kind of get people's attention along the way. I mean, we know a lot now, right? We know a lot already, so.
I think Paul or Kathleen, I don't know whether either of you are in direct contact with the homeowners, but you could, in that discussion, simply say, we are all sad by this and difficult, but we'd like to make it a precautionary tale. And we'd like to get, a lot of detailed information as to what we can share with people. And people react to an oil spill, but then they react really well to money or movement of soil, so that we can say, this was unfortunate, but take a lesson from it. So any chances of collecting the hard data on this is very, very helpful. And I'll certainly, I will certainly work with you to write a story. And I could probably even suggest to our first selectman that this may be good enough for a town mailer, just to send out to the entire town. It works in our sustainability. We would add in our story, our science team investigations as well.
I bet this is not the only tank leaking in town.
No, exactly. It's your tank leak. Yeah. And so if we look forward to continued updates, even by email or what have you. And if possible, I think that there is something that we could do as a whole town mailer that ties in this whole upstream, downstream. And this is, whereas we're looking at, fertilizers on lawns or insecticide or herbicides, this just brings it to a whole new level of why we have to be more thoughtful.
Well, the more folks we get connected to natural gas, the less we'll have to worry about this problem.
And then we just blow up.
Plus.
Another reason. So,
Yeah.
thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners,
Before we put this to bed, I think we ought to acknowledge the good work that this young man has done to find that. It's
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. That's the story. That's okay. Thank you. I gotta say, I was very pleased. I was sort of upset, and I was wondering whether it was just a little spill, but the fact that it continued for days really threw me off. And I appreciate how quickly you all responded. It takes a town, and apparently it also takes the state and deep to get involved.
Right.
This is for a conservation commission, this is a pretty big event because it happened right in our backyard. So
Yes.
we're neighbors too. So
Yeah.
thank you both.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Good night.
Good night.
You were a little bit upset.
Yeah. It is a challenge
Yeah.
in terms of how this comes out and how far you push, but I'm hopeful that, you know, there's a lesson learned here, even if we address it as this could be you, but layer in all the facts
Right.
of what happened and the financial implications of it. This is just where the leak bounces back on the source of the leak. The issue for us is always what's going on downstream.
Right, right,
And for amphibians, birds,
exactly.
hibernating snapping turtles, an oil sheen is not an easy thing for a
No,
sanctuary to
no.
fund.
It's
And
actually
I
very sad.
I fear we will be dealing with this until, you know, the heavy summer rains and heat slowly dissipated, because I don't know how they're gonna clean up the.
I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am.
Yeah.
I kind of like one of my business philosophies, expect the worst in yourself and be disappointed.
Well, as Marty was indicating, I mean, the soil around, you know that it's seeped into the soil,
Right,
but, you know,
That's gonna
we're
be-
not going to be digging up the soil,
Right.
you know, around the pond.
This could be something that could be made into a story for the paper, for the local community.
Sure.
If you have an oil tank and you haven't looked at it, pay attention to what's going on.
I agree. We'll make it a
We should.
And,
It is definitely in our wheelhouse too.
and I take your point that it would be great to work with the homeowner here, but this is a matter of.
right.
And,
Okay.
and how much will DEEP contribute to the testing and regular monitoring of the spill would be interesting.
Right.
Because as we engage Dr. Crosby, which I assume we're going to do,
Mhm.
to do some testing, and then the science team, we
Right.
would definitely have them do some of this.
Mhm.
How much will DEEP
You know,
Got
either pay or help or whatever.
Right.
should we recommend to the town that they consider an ordinance whereby you have to get your tank tested, the area around the tank? Not to just wait till something leaks and then you fix it.
Right, then you end up at a Superfund site. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
I think Robin and I were talking about
Might
there's
say-
some
Can we,
communities.
let me
do.
invite our attending town council to that discussion.
That might fall under state, but
Yeah.
Vermont. And I said that
Vermont, you
because
said me, Vermont.
every 3 years, they inspect because they've had so many of these issues.
Yeah.
Interesting.
you could recommend that, you know. from-
I would be in favor of recommending, but I wouldn't know what direction to recommend, a town ordinance
Well,
or a state ordinance.
there would be some method
Of,
that we would know that your tank is not leaking.
that's the preemptive,
Yeah,
as opposed to discover the leak and then work
That
backwards.
saves some people a lot of money.
I think it'd be worth asking deep if towns can make such ordinances, because sometimes,
Good point.
yeah,
like, you know, with leaf blowers, it's the EPA, not
Mhm.
the, you know, that covers them.
Well, interestingly enough, you know, when we brought up the idea of a full town survey or a full town mailer, you had suggested, should we have survey questions to get responses? Well, one of these would be, would you support an ordinance that required, you know, 3-year reviews of oil tanks? There'd be examples of what we could collect information on. So a thought. We have to push our agenda without, you know, I guess without becoming, you know, so structured or what have you. That, you know, we tend to rely on people's good intentions, but things go wrong.
I think if, when Tiger and I were at the presentation today at Lapham,
Mhm.
someone came with their mailer of the food scrap program at the transfer station. I think he did, and she asked, where did I get this?
Good.
But she kept it, and I think if you do I think another insert with water testing and other stuff, but about this and what the responsibilities, the costs for the homeowner, if this happens, I think that would really hit home.
I think there's gonna be, I think we have to work on how we build a story out of this that brings in the science
mhm,
and then the economics and then a little bit of, you know, the devastation, you know,
Yeah.
salamander covered in oil.
You can change a disaster into an opportunity.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess I suspect that the oil companies also would be very much supportive of a test or a check of tanks. because they're the ones who reinstalled the new tanks, and having done that recently, it's not inexpensive. Put 2 tanks in your basement.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know why I mean, it shouldn't be that much more.
Well, hang on, take this.
I mean, they come in,
You can just take it quick.
yeah, I mean, it takes them maybe 30, 45 minutes to, to change the filters in my oil tank. They could certainly do an inspection of the oil tanks.
Shine a flashlight underneath it.
Yeah, well, yes, that would be the in-ground, the above ground.
Above ground
Or in the
in
basement.
basement.
The ones that are in ground, which I thought that they had to be removed.
It's like-
When we bought our house, they told us we had to take it out of the ground.
When I sold mine, I had to make sure that it was removed and clean,
I know.
margined,
I know.
and I thought it was like, well, I mean, even real estate brokers would say, any ground tank is a problem.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So I'm surprised that there are still, I guess if you don't move or you don't buy real estate, then it can remain as a.
On Long Island, where I lived for a while, they have a big problem with groundwater.
Right.
And they have cancer for a while. And they passed ordinances in various towns.
That's right, that's,
Gotta dig it out, gotta get it out of here.
that's that, I
And
remember that.
people had to do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Groundwater, aquifer,
Yes, of
where
course.
you get your water.
Mhm.
And that really deteriorates.
An hour. For this discussion.
Susan, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Did you catch most of that?
I totally caught it all.
Great, great.
We missed Sandy.
I'm selling houses. I know all about oil tanks.
Yeah, congratulations, I saw you completed yours, so that's great news.
I did, and they're tearing it down.
Oh,
Yeah, that's.
You didn't see the big demolition sign.
I haven't seen it, no.
Yeah.
It's there,
Well, it sounds to me like you moved just in time.
just in time.
Got it.
Well, if I can't have it, nobody else can either.
There you go. There you go. Any further comments regarding the oil spill? All right. Given where we are, I would like to move to approve the minutes, which, by the way, Susan, fabulous for November and December. So I believe for the November minutes, it would require either myself, John, Susan, or Marty to approve because Linda wasn't at that meeting. And on the December minutes, it would require Linda, Marty, and Susan.
You weren't, no, Marty wasn't there.
Oh, which,
Yeah, I mean, John.
John wasn't there, sorry. So on the November minutes, do I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
I will second the motion.
Proof?
Susan, you approve?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Approved. Okay, November meetings approved. December would be Linda, Marty, and Susan. One of you must.
Yes, but the minutes that were revised and sent back to me had John being attending and absent.
Yes, you're right. That was,
Well, that should
That's
be
correct.
corrected. That should be corrected. I did those minutes.
Got it, so it's
made a
correct.
mistake. Take a while.
That we have. Well, wait, I have him as in December regular meeting absent.
and then-
Yes, but then he's also under present.
No, but the minutes sent around by Lola as revised
Revised ones are,
said that John was there, but in fact, he was not. But he can't be at both places, so John, you have to decide.
I have the latest printed minutes and it's been corrected.
yeah, it's been corrected.
Yeah,
So that's been corrected.
yes.
So motion to approve,
Make it.
Marty, Linda, seconded.
Second.
In favor, we need 3. Favor, Susan, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, minutes approved. Okay, continue.
Now, I have to say, Chris, I have to go now. It's,
Okay,
but it's all fine, and I'll listen to the tape.
got it. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for jumping
Thank
in.
you.
All right, take care. Good luck. We're going to move on the agenda to approve the pollinator pathway resolution, which will then be read at the town council and voted on.
Or it's like,
Board of Selectmen,
yeah,
no longer town council.
no, I think resolution would go through, the Sustainable Connecticut resolution went through Board of Selectmen, I believe this would go as well.
Okay.
What does that entail?
We have a copy of it sent out.
I have a copy.
You have a copy of it here, Marty? This is what it entails. It is basically a focus on taking steps to improve our pollinator plantings. And I had a chance to read it. You guys have worked it over, I think, pretty successfully.
Is there money involved?
There's no, is there money involved? Only your money, Marty, not the town's money.
It lines up more with Norwalk. We had to pull the tenets of the pollinator pathway per the pollinator pathway organization because the Department of Public Works wanted to be able to say that integrated pest management could be used.
Right.
Which is fine. Louise Washer, who's Norwalk River Watershed Association, she's okay with this,
Mhm.
and Tiger's okay with it, so. And the rest of the pollinator pathway organizations are okay with it now.
Good.
So it's good.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the Town of New Canaan, Connecticut pollinator pathway resolution as a conservation commissioner. I'd like to make a motion to approve this. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John Fusick. Discussion? Marty? I would say I'm pleased to see this coming through. I'm a big believer in less lawn, more meadow, more plantings, so we need it. This is the food chain. Without the insect life, we don't have anything up and above it. So thank you. I'll take a vote now to approve the resolution. All in favor? All in favor, passed by 4 commissioners. Thank you. Robin, thank you. You've really stayed on this one.
You know, if I let my lawn grow and not have anything cut, my neighbors would come over and complain.
Just do the perimeter, high parts of it. I let mine go. My neighbor probably would complain if I gave him a chance to.
Right.
But I can tell you, there's a lot of joy in just having high grass and then cut a path that you can walk through or around it. We'll see whether I'm successful or not. I get the fireflies to come in or not. Now that we have you here on Sustainable New Canaan update, any further news or that you'd love to share with us, Robin?
We had a program today for equity action at Latham on the transfer station.
Excellent.
There was a problem with their recording, so it's been recorded by phone watching. So not perfect, but at least we have it. But we have the presentation, get that out. Krista Nielsen or Nelson from PNC was able to get me some hazardous areas that we need for an action, which you can submit to Westcog. We have that. Some of the PNC stuff we don't have. They're really busy right now.
Yeah.
They've been busy like the last few
Yeah,
months.
never rest.
So it's hard getting those, and then we just need to try to find an approved third equity action.
Right.
I think we're set with the transfer station. We're gonna include the insert in there. The biggest thing for equity action is that we made it public now that low-income residents can go to Health and Human Services and get ask for a free transfer station pass.
Good.
They just need to get a letter, and then they need to give it to
Right.
the office there, and then they can get one. That was the biggest thing. Other than that, we're still kind of just trying to chip away at some of the.
God, you're trying to figure out what, I don't know whether Greenwich has found something or Darien or it's the same challenge.
So I work a lot with Darien and Wilton, actually,
Mhm.
and like Kathy Holland is putting together a program end of March on watershed education. That's for an action.
On what, excuse me?
Watershed,
Watershed. Yeah.
about watershed. And so she has someone from the, who used to be Deep, who's now with the Southwestern Conservation District. He's gonna be speaking with the library. We tried to do it with Wilton, but they didn't show up to an organizational meeting, but Wilton's in the same boat. Tammy Thornton is the person who works on theirs, and with the equity actions, they're in the same boat. Greenwich actually has someone who does this, it's their job.
Great as that.
So, they're definitely ahead,
Mhm.
but unfortunately, some of the actions they've added since our last application, I need to get information from Bethany about a homelessness survey. And
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty
So-
tricky to find something there. What about just, public park access, accessibility, things like that?
so one of the things I'm adding, I saw that in one town in their initiatives that aren't listed, they do something about basically Greenlink.
Mhm.
So one thing that I want to do is I have to find the minutes from various meetings, but how the town helps land trust and
Mhm.
creating this green link,
Mhm.
and that should get us at least 10 points. So things like that.
How far back can you go? Because I might have some of the correspondence that helps set that up.
Oh, you mean for the application?
Yeah,
What, oh, that is, because it's still something we have, that's fine.
okay,
It's not, it's the programs, the educational programs were just a
Right.
year out.
Right.
Like the beach leaf disease and the spotted lanternfly, stuff like that. But that stuff is ongoing, and we can always have in our application.
I like the Greenland. I think that's a great area to potentially pursue.
Yeah, no, we will. We're pretty much there, except for the equity action, and I have to get the homelessness survey.
Right.
Because one of the things you have to, and then we'll submit it. We need to get some information from Department of Public Works on the solar, because that's 50 points.
Yeah,
But they want the information, but we'll just,
in a certain format. So
yeah,
it is intriguing to me, having done solar on one of my buildings and having watched it here in the investment, is that the data is incredibly good when you're applying or seeking funding. But once it's up, the data stream seems to be incredibly difficult. In other words, you can project all these numbers, but when the real numbers are in, we're not getting the, this is what I said, this is what you get.
one of the things I know the Conservation Commission would be interested in, or P and Z, I did speak with Krista, I know her, we were just talking about this. CPACE, the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy.
Mhm.
We did a program, it's on the Conservation Commission page, information about it. But I don't think commercial properties, it's also nonprofits, know about it.
Mhm.
And that's something I wonder if the Conservation Commission would want to push it, or maybe it's more with chamber.
Yeah.
But it's multifamily homes, it's commercial properties, but just to make loans that makes it more sustainable, maybe they get solar. I know that Damari's, a bakery in Stamford, they used it, and they put solar now in there. So, but New Canaan's the only town that no one has
Ever applied
ever
for
applied
CPACE loan?
through it. Darien has multiple,
Mhm.
many of Darien.
Commercial establishments.
It's commercial, it's also nonprofit, so churches,
Well, no,
not the nature center, because you
the
don't,
St. Mark's has solar.
But
But
didn't
they-
take a loan or anything.
they might have done it, yeah, or they didn't go through this one. And some,
Well, they should have, because they worked with Kennedy, what's her first name? Joanne Kennedy, who at that time,
oh, it's, I don't think they did go through, because we have, CPACE has nothing through New Canaan.
What's the
Huh.
benefit, what's
they
the
did a huge.
program, it's a low interest?
So it's a better, it's supposed to be better financing. And it's through Connecticut Green Bank, whether it is better financing, maybe some, but I know Darien, Minnie has used it, Thornton Circle in Darien with all the medical complexes, they've used it. You've had churches that have used it to just upgrade even their furnaces to make them more sustainable.
Which is what, part of what St. Mark's did.
Right, Waveney Care looked into it, but they can't because they don't own, it's town-owned property, so you have to own the property as well. So Nature Center couldn't, because, well, they're town-owned, but,
But they did have the animal care building, they had.
they put the solar, yeah, that wasn't through,
That wasn't.
But it wasn't
the
funded,
nonprofit.
it was town
That
funded.
was town
funded,
town
not-
funded.
yeah.
But what you can also do is, if, let's say the YMCA, because they own the property, wanted to put on solar, but they need a new roof, they could try through CPACE to go through it for the new roof, even if they were doing a PPA for the solar, only because the goal is that, but it might be that that it's not better than somewhere else.
Right.
But it's at least there to look,
Right.
but it's not no.
I hear you. I think the challenge is in some ways is that not that many not-for-profits want to take on debt. It's a general concern. They're trying to build up a little bit of an endowment, go the other way. And then the commercial activity here is strong. And finally, there is capital. People who will raise money and support projects.
Right, but it's also for multifamily houses and it's also commercial, so.
Right. So, yeah, that would be the area to
Yeah.
kind of explore, like, in other words, there's a smaller target set, I think.
Yeah,
here in New Canaan.
Chuck Dartle come.
Oh, yeah, unless a big structure comes up on the road. Just working down through the agenda items, I don't know if any of these tie in. I have desired, and I'm going to work with Linda on it, to take the science team study and build a story from it. But I think that story will then tie into this oil leak story as well.
Yeah.
And it might be the basis for a mailer or a messaging system. And, I don't know whether the town has, I mean, we've got this out call system that you can ping people's phones,
Right,
but I don't know whether we have an out email system where we could send a message, a more efficient approach, right? Because right now I'm doing mailer inserts.
right. Well, we get for the COVID
Right,
response, I get
That's true.
emails to all my email addresses because I had to supply them when
right,
I get a text message
okay.
and a telephone call.
So you get it, yeah, you're being communicated.
I really know
You're on
what's
a full
going on.
communication list.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I don't know
the
whether,
family fourth used the outcall, the family fourth committee,
right,
I think they used the outcall for about last year about the family fourth.
to announce that it would not be held, or they had to announce it was on or off, right? Yeah.
Yeah, or even
I have 2 years of contributions there to collect. I'm just wondering, I know at one point the Conservation Commission did a newsletter. It seems like more,
right,
and also I'm more of a limited script kind
yeah,
of player, but there might be a way to think about it more regularly, because it's, our meetings are nice, if people want to sit in and discuss it, but it's not generally attended by the
what
public.
is your reach, that-
Yeah, what's my, reason? So instead, it tends to be more of,
And not
Yeah,
I
that
think
many
that's-
people look at that,
Well,
that's the way to go. This is the New Canaanite patch
yeah.
for people interested.
I think,
But if we really want to reach people, I think that the email list that they have, that the first selectman has must really, it must go to everybody.
You'd think that it would be pretty comprehensive, phone numbers and email
Yes.
addresses.
Absolutely.
You can't travel anywhere without giving a phone number.
No,
and email address. So
No, again, my text message and 2 emails and a telephone.
I want to
A
give it,
landline.
want to give that some thought about how to communicate, and in particular, this story around
The oil
water,
leak.
oil.
Yes.
this is still quite
Still pretty
effective,
good.
but,
Yeah,
but, an email as well. would be great.
I know. And then you get caught in the email purge thing.
Well,
So
it could
on the
go-
other hand, you
it
gotta
could
make an
go
effort. Gotta make an effort.
Yeah.
We gotta keep trying. Native tree planting, is that a Sustainable Connecticut benefit program? If we work that one a little harder,
Oh, well,
tree
it's a-
canopy?
Because we have so much canopy. You mean if for extra points?
For,
We'll
yeah,
get points for the matching fund we did for Waveney
got it.
for native planting.
Okay,
So we'll get points for that, but they have pollinator pathway points that we'll be getting anyway.
got it.
So we've already maxed out those points, so we're okay.
Well, I don't know whether any of you had a chance to see a program put on by various organizations around, I don't think it was called Religion in the Environment, but it was basically
Yeah.
along the lines of ecotheism.
Right.
And there were some just great discussions there, including
I saw that.
from the Quran, the statement of the last thing you should do is plant a tree. The very last thing you ever do
Before you
before you go
Go
is
on.
plant a tree. And I'm sure there was a symbolic or a
Right.
metaphor, but it's also a physical thing.
Yeah.
I think that.
I thought it was, could be a social equity issue, but I guess we don't have.
So it could be an equity action if it was something where you have to get input from the community. It has to be kind of seen as helping.
Less treated neighborhoods or.
Yeah,
more
so,
dense
so
neighborhoods.
we would be needing to go into areas that were considered low income.
Under treed.
Yeah, and maybe.
And we just don't have
And we
any of
just don't
those
really,
in
yeah.
Canaan.
But we still need a tree planting program as
Yeah.
opposed to a $500,000 tree removal program. Or balance or something
Oh,
that,
yeah,
otherwise we won't have a tree removal program in 50 years. You know?
Yeah.
We gotta keep going on it. Okay, solar power, I've expressed a concern. Swap shop, transfer station, too tough. It's getting harder. Until they get the salt cellar, we're not gonna get anything.
So at the program today, the question was brought up by someone online and Tiger said that space is an issue.
Yeah.
So I know we had to cancel the meeting
Mhm.
and maybe once the budget ceases over, just
Yeah.
try to get back on that.
I think you guys are all aware that the Department of Public Works needs a new salt cellar or needs a salt storage system. And I suspect that they're gonna try to get it up in the old, what is it when you bury all your trash, where the big trash pile is capped? You know, that area where they capped the old dump site. It's up the hill behind the pines where they store all the DPW equipment. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
think he wanted it actually down by River, is it Rivers Road,
Right.
River Street, because it would help block some of the noise. That they get complaints there. from
Oh,
noise
well,
from the-
they get complaints from up on top of the capped dump, so
I
they
think
wanna go
the-
down by the river.
The trucks beeping and everything, so
Right.
I think that,
Oh, I hear you.
so the budget this year for this fiscal year that's happening, there was $50,000 in there for a study.
Study,
So,
which would be both siding and construction.
right, and then it would be 500,000 last year.
Yeah, right. This year could be
This
750,000.
year.
That's where everything's going. Well, I brought it up to Tiger and I said, well, one of my concerns is salt leaching into the water supply. And, you know, what do we do to mitigate the amount of salt we use? And then there's this, you know, what I don't think we should be heading towards is more and more salt. Bigger and bigger salt cellars, spread more salt. That solves our problem. I think it creates other problems. So I think we need to come up with a salt application strategy and
Yeah.
one that reduces the amount of salt we use and instead uses pre-treatment, salines and things like that.
I thought he said that they did.
Okay, they do it, but we don't know, you know, orders of magnitude. Will we be going on, you know,
Because
I'm
of
gonna put a
course,
salt cellar up, but I wanna make it twice as big, just in case I wanna put more salt in.
I
But
see.
do we wanna
I
kind of
see.
say, let's think about this,
More,
let's think about right sizing.
right,
And also, what's the leakage issues around salt cellars and whatever.
yeah.
And it gets us.
Well, there's always the issue, of course, the water supply and then the roadside,
Yeah,
killing the,
up at Lake George, they completely, around
Right.
Lake George, they changed because they found out that the salinization was affecting the amphibian population.
Yeah,
In the whole pyramid, so.
yeah.
What is it killed by the road? What is it?
Well, then anything that's natural on the roadside, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to grow things.
Right,
The growth, but the, you know, the weeds, you know, for the butterflies, for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
insects, I
yeah.
mean, it destroys the ecosystems along the
Exactly.
habitats along the road.
When the Romans destroyed Carthage, they spread salt all over so nothing would grow. It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah,
I did a quick check, and I think that if you create the figure 8 green link, it's a half marathon. You could make it.
Oh, really?
You could make the thing a half marathon, so you could start at one point in Waveney, go, you know, out, up and around through the nature, you know, Irwin, you know, through the Irwin loop and then into the nature park loop and then down, out, back through Mead and then back into Waveney and come around. I think it's gonna be pretty close to like 13.
It's pretty tight to actually have an event like that.
Yeah, you'd have to have the streets.
No, I mean like the green link through. talking about, would it go through the nature center, that area
It would go through the nature center. That's pretty tight, although it's gonna get upgraded.
there?
It's pretty tight.
Not for a run though, because we,
Not for a run.
Yeah. I walked with Christian Charles from
Yeah.
Land Trust, and we walked and we're like, we can't do a run
No, you
here.
Yeah.
Can't
can't.
run through, that's too rooty,
No.
but they are gonna spend 25,000 to improve that.
Right, but there are two issues, is that the police don't like to do runs anymore because it closed down traffic. They're allowing the walk on the Earth Day celebration because it's gonna be from 10 to 2 or 11 to 2. And it's not gonna be everyone at once,
Mhm.
but they will have a police officer at O&M.
Right, which is. a
So
big
we have to
change.
pay for that, so,
Right,
but as they were okay with it because it wasn't a race where they had to stop traffic. This way traffic can go, people can wait and then cross, so.
you know, we say that, but when Caffeine and Carburetors goes, we stop traffic. We just do it because it's a big event. It's a question of where you want to go, what you want to do.
Right.
So I'm all for, heading into making New Canaan more walkable, more
Right.
bikeable, and particularly for seniors and strollers. I think that we don't serve those ends very well.
I think you could bring up with the police commission for a future, but I guess they're used, I know on Old Stamford Road, they used to shut it down for runs and it stopped, so.
Well, I think that, it's possible to consider it again, going forward. The Earth Day event, is that now fully scheduled? Because there's a request that the Conservation Commission have a table there so that we could answer questions from the general public about what is it we do, or gain input from the general public about what they'd like us to
Perhaps something about oil tanks,
do. Pardon?
Yeah.
perhaps something about oil tanks.
Yeah.
Oil tanks.
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
That's not a bad, it's probably,
Well,
hopefully we
it's
can
certainly
consider,
not.
but that's a great,
What's the
this
date, what's the date of that?
The 23rd, Earth Day is the 22nd, but it's a Friday, so it's
22nd of,
April.
April.
It's the Earth Day, I think it's gonna be called Extravaganza. It's gonna be Saturday, April 23rd at New Canaan Nature Center. It's gonna
23rd,
coincide with the Green Lake Walk.
right?
Um,
I'm here, that's good.
It's there is a program at 10 o'clock. It's gonna be Karen Bussolini, who's a gardener in Kent, for an hour, and then the main is gonna be 11 to 2.
And so the Green Link will take people through the nature center, and if we have a
During the
table
event.
there, we'd be able to have discussions or put forward. Would Planet New Canaan be there in force?
Planet King will be there, Land Trust will be there, Nature Center, of course, Beautification League will be there, I believe Garden Club will be there.
Good,
So, yeah.
Okay, so we should be,
Yeah,
we
We'll
should,
figure out something.
Preach to the converted.
Yeah.
okay, we're in. That's all I have on sustainability. Do you have anything, Robin, you'd like to add?
No,
Commissioners, anything you'd like to add regarding sustainability?
On the topic that you talked about with regard to the trees and the planting program, I think some engagement with the utility company
Mhm.
as well, because they're the prime
Right,
culprit in terms of denuding the
Yeah.
community.
we should, and they are supplying funding to take trees down.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to figure out how to get some trees in, even our street, John, was taken, a bunch of trees were taken out.
Yeah, massively, yeah.
Surprising, shocking. Okay. All right, on the Bristow side, I can report on a few items. One is that 100,000 has been put into the next fiscal year funding request. We're staying on track with the original plan. I think that there's some ideas of maybe they could scale it back because we're ahead of schedule, but I have to report that the costs of everything are accelerating. And I'll give you a prime example. We had agreed to put a pavilion, a pavilion. We had 15K of funding from a donor and 15K of support from the Exchange Club. And as recent as 4 weeks ago, we were on track. It was going to maybe be 32,000. In the latest iteration, having now dialed all the numbers in, it's come in at 41,000.
Oh,
Is that
So-
due to inflation or
That,
just?
that is availability of wood,
Yeah.
of cedar, which is being,
They should have ordered that.
right? We
a
should
long
have.
time ago.
I agree, but that's not how this, it's not how, you know, as much as we've said we're there, we're ready. It's just one of those things which is, until you get the path, you can't get the pad. And then,
No, but I mean, the builder who was building it. We should have made
They-
a mistake.
somewhere, and again, I was in touch with them because I'd asked 3 or 4 weeks ago, are we on schedule? And it looked okay, a little bit of slippage. But then it came in with the new numbers with the cedar, all of a sudden, just jumped everything up.
Well, what are we gonna do to stop that now? In
Yeah,
other words, is it 41 and maybe more?
well, that's the other side of that. It came in, which is.
About time to close the barn door.
Yeah, right. It came in, that the country casual side was right. So one of the things we dropped was, eventually, because we were worried about vandalism. And the idea was that we were going to clad the pillars with ipe, which is an incredibly hard wood. And I don't know, I say ipe, it's spelled IPE, but I think people call it ipe, very hard. But that also skyrocketed in price, so we canceled.
If you're gonna have cedar and it's gonna be clad with something else.
Why am I doing cedar?
Why bother with cedar?
Well, it turns out we're going back to cedar without the cladding. So we're into this thing, so, but by the way, with the cladding, it would have been 50,000, so we said, well, we're not doing that.
Oh,
There's a limit.
So,
you know,
there's a
the
limit.
exchange cost isn't gonna keep throwing money.
So the side of it is, what's happening is that the town is sticking to its capital, and the Friends of Bristow are covering the overages.
Oh.
And so one example was that the raised walkway that goes from the pond to the back originally was thought to have cost somewhere in the 30 to 40,000 range. It came in at 75,000. So the town did 30, they had 37.5. The Friends of Bristow put in 37.5 thousand. So, we're in that environment of continued inflation. This one here, that, to be honest with you, surprised me. I'm pretty au fait right now with doing construction. It is just insane what's going on. And it's just everyone's trying to either scramble to get their project done,
yeah,
and it's creating
backlog.
a backlog.
Yeah.
And until it
Supply
slows,
and demand.
until it slows down, demand slows down, or the bulge slows
Yeah.
down there. That's the one thing I have to report. And again, I suspect that the trail work activity will pick up again in 2 to 4 weeks. Once the deep freeze is over, and they'll be able to move equipment around.
So maybe spending hundreds of trillions of dollars, maybe there is a cost to it. Maybe,
Yeah.
possibly. Possibly maybe we're paying more because it wasn't supposed to cost anything. Trillions and trillions and
A
trillions.
lot of money pumped out in the economy and a low interest rate.
We're all gonna feel it.
I suspect we're in for a cycle. Two other quick points. We have built up a small fund through the Friends of Jim St. Clair of $3,000. I'd like to make a Conservation Commission Environmental Sciences Award. And I was thinking maybe I don't know who the best candidates are, but I would think the science team would be a good candidate. And I'm hopeful that some of those are juniors, not all seniors.
Right. So I'm waiting a response from the science teacher who oversaw the
Mhm.
science team project. And
Right.
we'll see what she says.
Got it.
Otherwise, we just decide what we want to do.
Yeah.
There's no school policy
Right.
against us.
Right, we could award it to the science team, we could award it to the science team leader,
Right,
whatever we
Right.
think is right.
right.
It'd be a $500 award that we could do it for 6 years. Incremental funding. I kind of like the idea of getting environmental science awarded
Right,
in a ceremony with
yes.
high school seniors. It would be
Yes,
very quick,
yes.
because it would be one of like 60 awards.
Yeah.
You've all been through that one, right? Okay. Future of Bristol Park. I had a great time down in Jamaica, and I visited one of their nature parks. It's in the top 5% for biodiversity as an island.
Oh, is it?
because it's so lush.
Uh-huh,
They have a tremendous diversity of animals and flora.
uh-huh.
And it did strike me that, in a way, sometimes I refer to Bristow as the coal mine. And we're watching the canaries, the birds at the coal mine. But in fact, it came to me, it's more like an ark.
Oh.
We should have two of everything in there.
Oh, I see.
in
I
terms
wondered
of-
what New Canaan's Ark was.
Yeah, the Canaan's Ark. Or an aviary or a terrarium or
Right,
arboretum, but
right.
that's neither here nor there. That's just me enjoying my strolling around Jamaica with a Cuba Libre to help. I don't really have a point to raise on open space other than I believe that the commission, if we're really good, will be able to influence the 2024 plan of conservation and development. I really feel like I want to dial up the message in that plan for guiding in the future. And I should share with you that the biggest thing I think we could do to help promote and set aside open space in New Canaan would be to find a funding mechanism that's something other than every year the Board of Finance says we have all these things to do, and we might do that or not. And where I think the space to go, and I think all of you have been involved in this, is when I recently sold one house and bought another house, I paid almost 100 basis point conveyance fee to the state, but I also paid 25 basis points to the town of New Canaan. And my thought was that some of that money is used for the Affordable Housing Project Fund.
Right.
My thought was that this plan of conservation development should call for a 10 basis point contribution towards the land acquisition fund. So it's a transactional, it's a revenuable stream that's not a tax.
Are you suggesting we increase taxes?
Interesting, I'm not suggesting we increase, I'm not saying we should increase real estate taxes. What I am saying is when I look at my transaction costs for when I bought and sold my house, my brokers got 600 basis points. And my house sold in 2 hours.
Well,
But
Way to cook it crumbles.
it's a little bit the way to quick crumbs, but to try to get 10 basis points is like, oh no, you're going to break the camel's back. And there's already 100 basis points going to the state, some of which goes to open space, and 25 basis points in New Canaan going towards housing. And my thinking is 2 ways. It is a toll. It's on the way in or the way out. You get there, and it is not where I want to go naturally, and I want to make it small enough.
Maybe you could influence the town to give you 10 basis points. They could take 15 basis.
Well, that's the question. That's the question. How might it work?
You have to be pure about taxes.
Meaning,
No new taxes.
that's the real challenge. That's the real challenge. Well, I would love to be able to say, what if brokerage fees were a little less? Well, the real
Well,
estate
that
group
would make
was-
you really
well,
popular.
interestingly enough, the group that is most adamant against anything like that is the brokerage, because they feel it slows down.
They made a fortune.
Well, I
Yeah.
understand that, and so my thinking is, you can't get this kind of a thing in during tough times, because people say it's gonna slow us down. But if you can't get it in during good times, you can't get it in, you can't get it. And if you really are gonna be serious, there is no way that a not-for-profit can compete with a water company looking to deal on land. They're
No.
going to go to the developer, whereas there's one not-for-profit of volunteer board members, there are 25 developers, 2 of whom are willing to throw it all out there
Right,
to try to make it work, and we'll come up with something.
right.
And unless the town takes a role, and here's my other thing, Marty, you're in the stock market, you're savvy. Tell me what company doesn't try to buy back its stock on occasion when they think the opportunity presents itself?
Well,
And why isn't town of New Canaan or the Board of Finance, which says this is the most important underlying permanent value equation in our town is land. Why isn't the town of Decatur a player? Why wouldn't they want to be in there as well? Because all it can do is support the market.
Well, what the town does, he acts as the broker. Every time something sells, they collect a bad fee. And so that, not to own the land, but to have it be changed, turning over all the time is a big deal for the town.
Yeah.
That's the business there, and the broker, in effect, the brokerage business.
Yeah, but
Owning.
I know, but wouldn't the town benefit from people who love the town so much they just want to stay here longer? Like, I hate to tell you, Marty, but you're a goose that lays a golden egg in this town. You volunteer, you pay taxes, you don't send anybody to the schools, you do all the nice things because you love the way the town looks.
Love the town, I love the town. Wonderful.
And we're in that category already, but we need to make this town lovable.
And you folks here are my cause about what's so good in this town. Volunteers, wonderful people, putting your time out, energy and smarts. That's what makes the town, terrific people. So we support the town, but we have to hold the line on tax.
I hear you. We have to be smart, and I take your point of view in there, and I think we have to realize there is a resistance to this idea. It hasn't been done yet because of the resistance, but we have to keep building the argument or the logic behind it, which is, why wouldn't we want the town to be another potential support for real estate value? Another support, not only a player in the opportunity to say, it drives me nuts that this little lot sitting at the exit to Mead Park, which recently demolished a house, is sitting there for a developer to put something in, whereas that could have been acquired and used to make a ingress egress point of entrance and exit for Mead Park right there.
The town owns a lot of property in town.
No, it doesn't.
No?
No.
I heard Kevin was talking about all the houses. all the
They own buildings.
own.
They own buildings. Yeah, maintenance buildings, nature center buildings, urban house buildings,
Yeah.
but they don't own open space a lot. They own. Wait, their record on it is they got some, but in '67, they acquire Waveney. And 40 years, and it wasn't for 40 years until they acquired Irwin. It's not, the town is not an open space acquisition.
Waveney as a percentage of New Canaan is so much bigger than Central Park as a percentage of Manhattan. We have a hell of a great open space.
We do.
Waveney and
We do. We're great parks.
we got a lot of wonderful space here. That's one of the features of this town.
It is. And we have 1 acre, 2 acre, 4 acres. So let me make this argument to you as well, which is, let's just say the water companies say, oh, the second taxing district of Norwalk owns the New Canaan Reservoir in the center of town. They say, well, we no longer need it. We were bought or sold. It's excess property. And they say, and then all of a sudden it goes into development. Well, at some point, someone's going to say, look, if the town of New Canaan isn't protecting its aquifers of its land and isn't a player in buying open space, why should we be protecting their 1, 2, and 4 acres of it? Why, if you're not even making an effort to support open space, do you think that we should be supporting your zoning structures? I think it's a defensive mechanism as well, to be in a position to say, no, we raise money regularly because we want to acquire open space, we want to protect open space, we need it for our aquifers. Just what Nantucket does is what Long Island does. You try to buy something in the Hamptons now, there's percentages in and out in that area. And we do it because we want to protect our open space and our aquifer and our water supply and our green spaces. So it's a tough argument, and I expect that resistance. We just have to figure out a way to break through.
Yeah, also the aquifer, the reservoir we have, and you haven't been up in that area, that's
Beautiful.
Walk in there, but that is gorgeous.
Well, and if it gets developed, it ain't gorgeous anymore.
Well, I mean, you mean around,
To be honest with you, Marty, from my observation, the Group's Reservoir is redundant. The New Canaan Reservoir is redundant, and Laurel Reservoir is redundant. The big water supplies are further away, Bridgeport Hydraulic or what have you. If there's any consolidation among water companies, these properties, and believe me, they look at it and say, we got a lot of value here, and we got a lot of value, and we got it, and we didn't pay taxes on it ever. It just, we held it for 100 years, didn't pay any real estate tax on it, and now we can sell it for a big gain. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Right, so we lose that space. So in order to be prepared for the water company, you need to have a little bit of a war chest. It doesn't work because if the deal comes up, there'll be somebody on the board, if I said, yeah, I don't think we need to worry about that, let the land trust raise the money. And it's not gonna work.
Chris, who pays those conveyance fees now, Is it the buyer or the seller of the property?
So, I think I
can check it out.
can check it out. I believe I
I think the
paid,
seller does, I think.
I think the seller pays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid on the sale of my property.
Yeah,
Seller pays
seller pays.
1% to the state, you think?
1% to the
The
state.
25 basis
The 25 basis points.
And
to
the,
the town.
and the town money goes to the,
I don't know where it
I
goes.
don't know where it goes.
Exactly.
but
I don't know how many
we have to
basis
pay it.
points go, but it's like,
well, that, I mean,
Goes to the town somewhere.
I'm sure it goes to, it's partly going to the affordable housing fund. So I think that there's something there, and whether it's a buyer tax or seller tax, or it just gets rolled in one way or the other, it's there. I think is the sustainable financing mechanism.
It seems to me that I remembered years ago that there was a presentation for that.
Yes,
here.
it was
And I thought it
presented,
was by you
Yes.
and
it's,
somebody else.
it
can't think of his name.
was the land trust with the Yale School of Forestry and
Yeah.
Environmental Science. And it was saying, if you look at a range of funding mechanisms,
Yeah.
you can bond, you can seed base or whatever,
Yeah.
you can, or you can
Right,
private
right,
raise,
right,
or
right.
you could move towards a more predictable funding stream. And even that funding stream isn't as predictable because one year, there's $1 billion
So what happened to
transaction.
that, Chris? I know we listened to the presentation and to the recommendation, and I thought that it went into the plan of conservation.
It came out after, so this is where I realized we gotta get it into it.
Okay,
So just a discussion, I mean, and frankly, I'd love for you to talk to some people, friends, say,
Yeah.
what do you think of this idea? What is the big objection? And I'm with you, Marty, which is, gosh, please, no new taxes. But it is not so much a tax as a toll. It's, you benefited, I hear you, it goes around, but you benefited all the time you lived here from the open space. And now, when you sell your property, you're giving a little bit of that back, potentially. And frankly, if it works, everybody's property values should go up. You got 30 years of appreciation. I'm not asking, I mean, I don't know whether it's on the, you can't do it on appreciating value, but the truth is, a lot of times, a 30-year resident has got a very low basis and is on a very large gain. And what did they do for that?
Real estate prices in Manhasset have accelerated maybe 2 to 3 times more than the.
Gone up
Yeah,
with their high conveyance fees,
way up.
because the town
Closer
is,
to town.
the town is,
One shot right into town on the train.
Right.
That's fast.
I hear you, but it's also because the town is buying land, it's creating scarcity. The town itself, it's like a stock buyback program, which is, I'm taking
The point I'm making is
things
we
off.
have not had the real estate improvement compared to many other great areas in this country, price wise.
That's possible.
It just hasn't happened.
Yeah, and in truth, we were going backwards for a while
yeah,
with, as New York and financial, but now we're back up, Marty.
yeah.
there's no reason why you
We
couldn't
got a ways
do
to
it
go.
on the game. I mean, the numbers are now, they're just,
You could potentially do it, but it'd be, you'd have to be more specific. And here's one other
yeah, it's
thought.
more cumbersome for sure.
It's more cumbersome. You could do it on the game. And you could also say, it doesn't apply to, if you transfer your property to your family. In other words, in Nantucket, you can transfer your home,
Right,
leave it in the family trust, and there's no conveyance on that. But if you sell it, if you sell out,
right.
you pay.
If you look what's
Wouldn't that be
happening in Canada right now, we have a new library going up.
Yeah,
We have
police station.
Aloysius School, gonna be torn down, and built up big.
It is,
They're
really?
gonna- they're
Oh,
gonna-
I didn't know.
They're
about
gonna
that.
go more than 8 grades. Their original idea was they were gonna take the school from 8 grades to 4,
Uh-huh.
and they must have had an explosion of people. Not gonna happen. They went down there and they had worked a new deal out. So now we're gonna get a new building there, right across from the library. You got the view, what Carp put in there, and then we have people wanting to come into New Canaan. New Canaan has a tremendous, tremendous reputation
Mhm.
wherever you go.
Mhm.
And it's being more and more recognized. And the building that's going in, is gonna make the town even more attractive, much more attractive to people who appreciate that.
Mhm.
Now, I have a granddaughter who wants to move. It's up to finding a place, you know?
She's got you, Marty.
Well, we had two, I was talking to my surgeon the other day. I told him, I said, my 3 daughters are grandmothers.
Wow,
So I have 6 great grandchildren.
wow.
And I just had
Congratulations.
2 little girls born within the last 5 weeks.
Wow.
Heidi and Charlotte.
Congrats, Marty.
So we put money away for the.
Yeah.
But we have a terrific, so they want to stay in the area, we're very close together, and it's really wonderful. The education we're getting up here is terrific, you know, and we're very happy about it. It's a good place.
Well, I'm working on my arguments. I'd love for you to just discuss with some of your acquaintances, what about, could this, what are the objections, so we understand that. I mean, obviously, good ideas are honed in discussion and balanced out, but I love the fact that the town would be an open space player where it's not seen as a player at all. Where if a lot came up, even the town should be someone to run a license on. That example at Mead Park, or that little house that's at the corner of Mill Pond, that could have been a beautiful vista into a pond as you're driving through. And it was available for $500,000, but the town had no gas, no wherewithal
Well,
to
there
even
was that
negotiate.
Indian Waters.
Yeah.
In
That's it.
years ago, which was really sad.
And that's what happens, Marty. It's a 20 to 25-year cycle. It was Indian Waters, but in 1995, it was 40 acres up where Father Peter's Lane was when they sold off land over there. And that's the Summer Suite development. That was another big one. It's going to come again. It may not come in 5 years, but in 10 years, there'll be another piece of property that'll be out there and say, well, we don't need it and you can't have it. You know, we want to go.
You should talk to some of the neighbors of Indian Waters, because I know on Parish Lane South.
Yeah.
They're getting flooding now because all the trees were taken down,
Yeah.
and they're having the issues there. And then that property is now a farm, so it's been on the tax rolls.
Yeah, it got
So I
put
think-
through.
You talk to some of the neighbors there, they would have, in retrospect, conveyance, yes, because they're dealing with the fallout of the town not having a
No,
pond.
they were, the people that lived there definitely wanted the town to buy the property.
Right. Well, but the town was not prepared to
No.
play, had no capability
They
of doing it.
said
And
they
that's-
had no
and it was-
money.
And it was at that point that Kevin Moynihan, as town council, said, wait a second, we should have a land acquisition fund, because this was crazy. Because in the end, it was selling, the land was being sold for $150,000 an
Yeah.
acre, which is a really good buy,
Right.
right? And if the economy turns down, maybe.
What went on for that land? I'm in the dark here. What was actually, what's going on?
It was purchased by one of the neighbors.
Yeah.
And then he's, developing his estate, and then he's clearing the woods, and he's putting in trails
On
and
his
things like
own.
that.
And
But it's still his own one
huge,
property.
huge water features.
And
And
large
I
water
mean,
features.
it's kind of,
So his own personal
Horrible.
Disneyland.
yes,
It-
so
it-
kind of like a Disney.
It basically was a chance to save, 19 acres of preserved land.
Yeah, no, I remember
It
this
disappeared.
prior to him buying.
So you can be wistful about this and say, oh, something should have been done, but my sense is, if there's something that we as a commission do that would be transformative,
Mhm.
as difficult as it would be, and even I pay taxes, Marty, I pay taxes on land use. Even me would be a little upset,
We
but
do
not
too.
that upset, if I realized that there's a little percentage that's gonna go for permanent open space, because I've benefited personally from having open space. I feel like I can pay that forward at that point, when I'm on my exit or entrance. I'm either entering with 30 years of mortgage payments, or I'm exiting with 30 years of appreciation, maybe. And yeah, it is hard on the high turnover real estate. But the high turnover real estate is more along the lines of got in, got my kids educated, got out.
But I think we ought to, if you're gonna increase taxes or whatever, real estate, people have made a fortune and they continue to make a fortune. On what happened, they turn the same land over all the time.
Yeah, oh yeah, they are big promoters of our town.
Yeah.
They're very big promoters of our town, but what I find is that they're not, they're trying to build it, but they actually make money by using the brand of New Canaan, what brings people here, and then they make a transaction fee. I want to build the brand of New Canaan, which includes all these beautiful open spaces.
Group could do more along those lines.
Possibly. Right now,
Great position, and it's right up their alley, you have a great town.
it's a little hard for them because if it becomes protected open space, there's never a commission on it, ever in the future. It's no longer a commission street. That's tough.
There's also no tax.
Pardon?
There's also no real estate tax on it.
But there's no
10
expenses.
10 basis points on $1.5 billion is $1,500, and I think some people will balk at that for sure. I don't think the dollars is as much the issue as then what's the next dedicated fund?
Mhm.
on top of
Absolutely,
it, right?
absolutely.
Now we want a fund for, school.
Believe me, the school, the education has a very good funding mechanism right now.
Yeah.
I agree.
Education
Education is okay.
can get 200 people
Yeah.
every time to support what they want to do. The problem with open space is we can't get the garden club and the nature center and the beautification league and the land trust, all those members to come in and say, we need to protect open space. We don't have that same collectiveness to do it. We should do it, but we don't have it yet.
Why not?
And it's an organizational challenge. It's the Conservation Commission maybe needs to figure out how to sit with and listen to all these big volunteer organizations, which are in fact de facto adjuncts of the town itself anyway. I mean, in Greenwich, they've got a horticultural team that plants all their islands and parks. In New Canaan, we have the beautification league and the garden and the garden club. When we need open space, we have the land trust. In Greenwich, they'll figure out a way to do a deal where they work with the land trust or wherever else. So there's and it's very fortunate. I mean, in some ways, there's this term where the town it hasn't entirely done it, but it's sort of like just farmed out things that a municipality might do otherwise. It's
interesting you say that because when we had a pollinator pathway meeting, Tiger had said, we brought up what Newtown has done, where only needed plantings. Tiger said, well, I can't do that because I've got garden club here, I've got beautification league here, I've got this group planting here, and they do take care of this. And it's hard to organize them or tell them what to do.
But that is also the beauty of the town, isn't it?
Yeah, it
The organization.
You can get by
People
now.
do it for free, so yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Like
And so-
the wall here, Vine Cottage,
Yeah.
that's all a beautification league member who takes her
Sure,
plants, splits them and brings
brings
them.
them over here, or recycles old tulip bulbs and things
Yeah.
like
Right.
that, I know. But it strikes me that, and as you say, this is a great town for volunteers, but it strikes me that the town can abdicate certain responsibilities, or I think they would say we delegate, but when it comes to open space, they need to be a little more, I feel the town needs to be a player, because my experience 10 years with the land trust, it's not in a position to compete with or argue with a municipal organization or a water organization. They're just too big, too powerful, too overwhelming to deal with. And only the town, which says, wait a second, we want to protect our aquifer, we want to protect our open space, we want to protect our zoning, is in a position to say, yeah, no, we don't want you to sell that, we'll take it. And we'll negotiate a price that reflects the amount of real estate taxes you paid over the last 100 years on that. And we'll fight anybody else who wants to develop. The town has to be more muscular in that regard. I think.
So are you going to are we going to present something again? And
I think so. I'm bringing up the idea, and I'm going to be believing that, I think that the mechanism to it is through the plan of conservation and development. That becomes then the record of planning and
and
how.
so you wrote something recently that we were going to.
Yes, the
review.
open space
Right.
thinking. I should rework that and put that on an agenda for discussions.
Yeah, it was at one point, and then
It's been,
it's been
Flitted.
moved.
and in fact, it's right there, open space criteria, meadow, discussion, March. So let me put that on the agenda for March. To
Okay.
talk about, and March will be an open space
Oh, well,
discussion.
we had hoped that it could also be a leaf blower.
And a leaf blower. So I'm gonna put those as,
Those
so
are two big discussion.
I'll put those two items as the discussion, so we won't do Bristow, we won't do sustainable, we'll do those two.
All right,
Fair enough?
okay.
Good.
Perfect.
With that in mind, I'd like to have a movement to adjourn the meeting.
Move it over, Chair.
Move to adjourn. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. So
Thank you a lot.
can I end this now? Here we go. End will work, right? End meeting for all.
Yep.